Hello everyone, this is Rick and welcome to Astral Club. Today's video is Q&A number 15. Yes, we'll be covering some questions and answers from the last few videos we've done within the last couple of months. And as always, you guys have always provided excellent comments and questions. Unfortunately, all I can do is cover a small part of them, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. Before I get started, I just want to thank Nova Zazen, who is a new Astral Master supporter of Astral Club on Patreon. And they'll get advanced videos every Tuesday with no commercials and a direct email to me so you can ask questions and comments and supply some ideas, whatever comes into your head. Before I get started on the actual video, though, I just want to thank you guys for all of your advice on my episode where I went to Amphibia and I was able to work with others to stop the living sacrifices they were making of their intelligent citizens and instead substitute it with a symbolic one. However, I did feel a little betrayed because I was manipulated because the council had influenced one of the stones to come out of the fountain, and they used that as leverage against me to force me into this particular task, which I wasn't all that enthusiastic about because, as an alien, from their standpoint, interfering in their society, that was not something that I was really comfortable with. But I felt I had to get involved once that child, who I call Rose after my own daughter, was selected for the sacrifice, and that gave me a personal stake in it. At any rate, you gave me a lot of excellent, very wise advice. I would say about 90% of the advice was for me to stay in Astral Guide School. It acknowledged that I had been manipulated and they had acted improperly. You guys said I should set some boundaries and work maybe more with my angel. Let everyone know that I know what went on and that I'm going to be watching. And, it's almost kind of a probationary thing. But you guys overwhelmingly said, don't quit Astral Guide School. If for no other reason than you're doing more good than whatever might be happening to you, say, negatively. So, I'm going to take your advice. I haven't contacted my angel or anyone else in the Astral Guide School yet. I was just going to let them sweat a little bit longer. When I do decide to contact them, though, I'll make sure they're aware that I won't be resigning from the school as I had considered doing. Okay, let's get into the origin of souls. And let's talk about those questions and comments. Now, if you recall, in the Origin of Souls episode, I was curious as to how souls were introduced into our universe. So I went all the way back to the Big Bang, or right after the Big Bang. Then I went another billion years into the future, landed somewhere in the mid 12 billion something to try to see what was going on. And eventually I was able to progress to a point where this dimensional rift opened and this crystal lattice work exited. I communicated with them, and after doing so, they broke apart, and I believe, or at least I suspect, that they might have been that raw material that was used as to form souls to explore and experience our physical universe. I had a lot of excellent questions and comments, especially, and I'm going to talk about them now. Igor 87 and Photios started mentioning how a lot of what this these souls talked about reminded them of principles of quantum physics. Now, when I was in school, that was back in the Stone Ages. Our version of science or a lab was hit it with a stick and write down what happened afterwards. So we didn't have quantum mechanics back then. And my understanding of it is rudimentary to be the absolute most charitable. If you have any questions or further questions about this, then I would say talk to Igor87 and Photios. Do not refer them to me because I am well out of my depth. However, in this video, we talked about how these entities told me that they were in a universe that had very different laws than the ones that we have here. No physical matter was possible. In fact, they both existed and didn't exist at the same time. Something which confused the heck out of me. However, these two gentlemen talked about the principles of superposition and also waveforms. Now, I believe it was Igor 87. When he mentioned superposition, apparently what that is it's the state of something that isn't clear until it's measured or perceived by someone looking at it. That's interesting. If you're familiar with Schrodinger's cat, that paradox or example, I guess, talks about this very same thing. So if you're confused, maybe look that up. Book Hermit mentioned that perhaps these beings brought quantum entanglement into our universe. Once again, I'm the wrong person to explain this, but briefly what that means is if you have two particles that are entangled on a quantum level, you could take one particle and have it, here in New York City, and you could take another particle and stick it on the moon, for instance, or you could stick it on Mars, or you could put it on another star if you like, I suppose. If you do something to that particle in New York, the entangled particle instantly, and I mean instantly, also registers that same change. We're not exactly sure how that happens because it seems to occur much faster than, say, the speed of light. At any rate, that's enough quantum physics. Photios also mentioned that when I saw only gas giants in the early billion or so year old universe, he said it tracks because at that point in time it's believed that most of the material that was in our universe at that point was essentially hydrogen gas. So it would make sense that there would be a lot of large planets and, of course, stars as well. Heavier elements aren't usually generated until supernovas blow up and create them, for instance, and then they end up making the elements that form rocks that end up forming rocky planets. So he just wanted to say that that whole thing tracked. Valentina said that, I guess she asked if I could, she wanted to know why I couldn't go back before the Big Bang. But I guess she accepted that. And she was wondering whether I could travel to another universe. I'm not sure whether that's possible. I guess it was possible for that crystalline grouping, that crystalline intelligence. And I remember they explained to me how they did it, but that explanation went zoom right over my head. So I can tell you that I think every projection I've ever had has been within some dimension, some time zone of our own home universe. I'm not quite sure how you might get to another one. Maybe going into a black hole like a lot of people constantly ask me if I've done. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll try it out, but not quite yet. Igor87 chimed in another time. He wanted to know if perhaps I gave them the idea for what a soul looked like. I don't know. I do know that they were fascinated by my aloneness, by my singleness. They are also fascinated by every single thought in my mind that was an experience. Whether it was positive or negative, they didn't care. They were fascinated by that whole thing. And they wanted very much to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly that this new physical universe had to offer. Random Z said that according to Hinduism, the universe came from an infinite light which had no start and no end, with some extra intelligence introduced from another dimension. So that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that Hindu creation myth. The next video was, why can't I astral project yet? I just discussed all the different ways that perhaps you could push yourself into start experiencing astral projections if you hadn't previously, or if you're on the edge. And I talked about a number of things, including making yourself a tape with suggestions that you'll astral project, and then maybe with filler reading from Journeys Out of the Body, for instance. At any rate, it worked for me in the past. Okay, at any rate, Chris Gordon said that, okay, thanks, Rick. That was a tremendous video. That really helped me. And he's now really getting set to have better OBEs. L, which is the whole name, said, how do you feel about the scientific community that denies the existence of souls and astral projection without even trying to experience it before making judgment? That's a good question. I don't really take it personally. I think our physical science has done an excellent job on the physical plane. Their expertise is in physical things, physical matter. And I think they've done a great job of that. However, I think they intuitively realize that anything outside of the physical, yes, they don't want to recognize that it exists, but I think they also intuitively understand that they're way outside their depth. And it's really a place that they know they really shouldn't go, because it's something that won't cater to their expertise. So I don't have a problem with them because they've given us a lot of great advances, and I'm very grateful for it. And everybody here on the physical plane should also be grateful for those advances. L also asked me, what are the most fun things you've done in the astral? I said exploring the depths of space and traveling to possible futures. Irina Angelic, I'm not sure if that's how her last name is pronounced, but I think it's probably a great way to pronounce it. Irina Angelic. She had a question. She was lying on her bed for 30 or 40 minutes, and she felt this warmth washing over her from her stomach on upwards. But when it reached her throat, because this happened repeatedly, she panics. And she wanted to know, if I had any advice to this, or what this was all about. I said, I think you might be feeling the start of a vibrational phase, and it manifests itself sometimes slightly different for each individual. She may have felt it as this rising warmth. I just said, understand that you are safe, relax, and get ready to roll out or float up or sink down, or reach out and grab something and pull yourself out. Now, OSKI, or Oski, says when he doesn't focus on astral projecting, his frequency of projections decreases. He said months can go by, but then when he starts thinking about astral projection again, the frequency increases. He wanted to know if this happened to me. My answer is absolutely. I also go through periods of plentiful astral projections, followed by some sparser periods. Uh, a lot of it, I believe, depends upon just how much I'm thinking about astral projection, reading about it, um, investing energy as I fall asleep, for instance, in desiring to astral project. So I think, remember, we've said that our subconscious mind must be involved in this process. It has to understand what you want to do. And that has to be continually um, reinforced over and over again so that it continually understands what it is you want to do. Sometimes the subconscious mind is like a little 2 year old. You have to tell it repeatedly, over and over again, in a non confrontational, non negative way, what you want to do, that you want to astral project. So, yeah, it's something that definitely happens and it is normal. One thing that does happen for me that's kind of a safety gap at this point is I have astral projected so much that I've noticed that if I go through a dry spell and I don't really invest time and energy in breaking it, I'll have spontaneous projections. It's almost like this desire builds up somewhere subconsciously and it forces me to project. So, I mean, that's a good little reinforcing mechanism that I really do appreciate. Cheddar Charles wanted to know, will an angel always come when you call? Interesting question. Calling for angelic assistance, I don't know. I think it's kind of like calling for the police sometimes. They'll usually come, but on their own time schedule. Uh, so, you if you want that assistance, you can call for it, but you won't always get it instantaneously or when you want it. In my alien abduction experience, I detailed that during an astral projection, I met this very advanced alien overseeing species that kind of keeps tabs on Earth and watches what other alien races are doing in on the Earth or in the Earth's sphere of influence, and how they told me some information, but swore me to secrecy. But I guess they doubted my willingness to keep their secrets, and they probably were right. I wanted to share the information. And as a way, I guess, to warn me that they were serious, they were able to transport me to various lonely, abandoned futures as a way to get me to, conform to their instructions. Uh, I guess one of the things that a number of folks asked me was, can you tell us this secret information? Believe me, I would love to do so. But my wife and daughter were mad at me for saying as much as I did. And from my standpoint, I really don't want to go to sleep and wake up at night in the middle of the Pacific Ocean somewhere. And I hope you can appreciate that. Perhaps someday I'll be able to work something out where I can share that. Um, Jacqueline Yanez, who is an Astral Club supporter on Patreon, she joked that, well, Rick, the third time's the charm, right? Thinking that, well, talking about this for the third time, maybe I'll be okay. And so far, Jacqueline, I have been okay. Um, Now, the last thing I want to talk about here, and this is not strictly related to this video, but it was asked by Luscious Loafers, and it's repeatedly asked through a number of videos. And I could probably make another whole video about this, but I just want to address it now. What is your opinion on the reincarnation trap theory? Okay, real briefly, there is two schools of thought that try to simplistically And keep in mind, all of this I'm talking about right now, I'm being overly simplistic. And these two schools of thought try to explain why we're here, why we're in this reincarnation cycle. The first is that reincarnation is an astral school. It is a way for souls to learn and to assist one another in a physical school. The school is never easy, but it exists for our benefit rather than our deficit. The second one is presents reincarnation as a trap. It is a prison. It is something that has been done to us. And as such, our number one goal should be to seek some escape. Now, when I talk to people who believe this end of things, they never quite seem to know if they escape, what are they going to do or where are they going to go. That's always a bit fuzzy. I think maybe there's a lot of folks who don't get that far in their thought process. It's just, well, I just want to escape and then I'll figure it out later. Now, I'm willing to admit that there may be elements of both of these philosophies operating realistically in our reincarnation cycle. And there may be some other entities out there that are taking advantage of something that they located, something that they found already in action. They didn't cause it, they're just taking advantage of it. For instance, the whole Loosh collection thing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the Loosh video where I talk about something that Robert Monroe discovered. But my belief is that the school explanation for reincarnation is more accurate than the prison one. I look at it this way. If you're a quick learner, school can be a breeze and it can even be fun. However, if you're a slow learner and you've been held back repeatedly, it can literally seem like torture or like a prison. Now, is that a function of the school, or is that a function of how you feel based on your performance in that school? I sympathize for that slow learner because all of us at one time or another could probably be characterized as slow learners, and that includes myself. Let me talk to you when I was much younger and I had this astral projection capability. It was great, don't get me wrong, but it also separated me from everyone, my family, in a very real sense, in that there was this hidden wall, this subtle wall between us. It was also between my town and my friends and my school classmates. There was always this secret that I had to keep that made me feel different. And I didn't feel like I belonged. And I wished for the longest time that I wish I wasn't here because I don't seem to belong here in the physical. And I think many people have that particular thought process. But what I found when I started sharing, I was confident enough to share my astral projection information with others. I was able to learn that I had a purpose for being here. So all of a sudden, all of that loneliness and that implicit and explicit suffering started to make sense to me. That I was here to assist others in whatever small ways that I could with the information that I had available. So all of a sudden, this imprisoned feeling that I experienced lessened dramatically. And I started to see it more as a school and more as a positive experience that on some level I volunteered for. Okay, I'm here on the physical because I chose to be here. Because what little I can do will be of assistance to my family, friends, and others. So that is my brief take on reincarnation and to answer that particular question. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Always love your comments and questions because they might end up on a future Q&A. If you'd like to support the Astral Club on Patreon, there'll be a link in the description. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.